Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today Mañana. I'm Michael. This is Nicholas. We're happy to have you on this beautiful fall weather, I would say.
Yeah, no, it was great. Very misty this morning, but it cleared up.
It definitely,
quickly.
It's been getting cool in the morning, but it's still getting warm in the afternoon, which is good.
Perfect temperature.
Perfect temperature to sit down, grab your café con leche. Warm, maybe a little room temperature, but I wouldn't say it cold. I wouldn't ice it, but definitely warm or room temperature. Café con leche, sit down because we have a fantastic show for you today. We're going to be joined shortly by Sandra Wang from Fetch Pet Care, and then we'll be followed by Ilya Tovbis from the Virginia Film Festival, and last but not least, Matthias from Matthias Realty.
Make sure to like, share, and
there
subscribe.
There you go. And I'm Michael. I'm happy to be here, and I'm joined today by Nicholas.
Good morning.
The
esteemed
Nickolas Urpí. Keith is the distinguished gentleman, isn't he?
No. You can skip the name.
Yeah, okay.
We have to figure something out.
We have to figure out some sort of name, yeah.
But if you're ready...
No, hold on. We got our sponsors.
That's true.
As always, we are presented by Emergent Financial Services, and we're powered by Castle Hill Cider, Matthias Realty, Craddock Serious Insurance, and Forward Adelante Business Alliance. Okay, so now
we're ready. Yeah,
we
this
can
is
jump.
Why you're hosting.
You have to do the sponsor list. Don't get jumpy. Relax.
No, I know. That's why you're hosting.
This is exactly. Just relax. I know we're all anxious to get to our first guest.
Yeah, that's why.
I know. So we're very excited to welcome Sandra Wang from Fetch Pet Care. Sandra, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
No, it's wonderful to have you. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got involved in Fetch Pet Care.
Sure. I actually came from a marketing background. So, but 20 years in the industry, I decided it was time to switch gears and purchase the Fetch franchise. So it is a franchise, and now I apply my marketing skills to my own company. But I also enjoy just walking the dogs too and checking in on the kitties.
So what experience did you have that kind of made you? Prior experience did you have that kind of made you be like, I want to work in pet care?
I did a lot of volunteering at shelters, so whether that's dog walking or taking care of the cats, but dealt a lot with kennel stress and working with animals that have that are shy or fearful because of that environment that they're in. So that really and having grown up with pets my whole life too, but that's one of the things that kind of inspired me to choose Fetch versus other franchises that I was looking at the time, because it's something that I've been passionate about already. So it's just a nice pairing.
So what was it exactly about Fetch Pet Care that kind of made you be like, I want to open up this franchise versus kind of like other potential franchises?
Yeah. So, I had certain criteria. I said, I can't have like set hours. I don't want brick and mortar, where I need to staff a location kind of thing. So, because I have little kids and, I need my time to be flexible and, get them into activities and be able to take them to practice and such like that. So, Fetch kind of checked all of those boxes on top of just, you're working with pets, you're working with animals. So that really kind of made it stand out. And it had a great support system in that, we're supported by a call center. We have an app, to track our visits. And of course, the website that, the marketing team does a great job on as well. So it's kind of like buying a business in a box and like, here you go kind of thing.
So what are some of the services you provide at Fetch?
Everything from dog walks or, the pet visits, they're for like cats and small animals. Basically any type of pets that's not a dog that you would, walk or take out of the house. Anything from that to, 24-hour overnight pet sitting / house sitting, where our sitters go to the client's home. And that's kind of our niche. We send sitters to the client's home. So we don't have a physical location. We're not a kennel or daycare or facility. We're not a facility. So we go to the client's home to service, to take the dog out for a walk, to check on the kitties, to stay overnight and take care of what they need us to take care of.
Do most animals, like dogs or whether it's dog or cat or something, do they suffer from? Because I know you mentioned was it kennel
kennel stress
Kennel
or
stress, like,
reactivity.
is it that there are specific animals that have that, or is it that most animals kind of are uncomfortable out of their environment, and therefore it's a lot better to just have someone come and watch their pet in their own home?
I mean, I wouldn't generalize and say most animals. Of course, they're, cats, dogs, they're territorial animals. So, they're always going to be more comfortable in their own environment. But you do have, people rarely board cats. Usually they just, have somebody come in, whether that's twice a day, once a day, every other day, even for the independent ones. Most of our clients are dogs. And it's, by nature of what we do, going into clients' homes to keep the pets in their environment, we've kind of naturally built up this client base where we do have dogs with behavior issues in our client base, and we also have dogs with medical issues.
Gotcha.
So my sitters, when I'm hiring and building up my team, I'm looking for vet experience. I'm looking for training experience. Even groomers are great because they handle pets in stressful situations, because no dog wants to get groomed, it seems like, ever. You can have the sweetest one and they'll cry the whole time, right? Or even like myself, shelter experience, having worked with a lot of the reactivities, that the issues that you see at shelters. So they tend to gravitate toward us, but again, I don't want to generalize and say, oh yeah, all dogs, you should keep them at home as much as possible, because that socialization aspect is important. So there are plenty that do well in daycare facilities or get kenneled because they love the play groups and they love running around. And the ones who don't do well in that environment, then we send a sitter over to engage with them one-on-one. Yeah.
Interesting. So when you will go to someone's house, for example, to walk their dog, so how does that process work? Like, they give you a copy of the key to the house, and then you simply walk in. Could you walk me through, just out of curiosity?
Yeah. So we have a meet and greet before we start any visit. I don't send any sitters in cold. So even when it's an established client and I'm just introducing a new person to their team, to their care team, we have to have a meet and greet. The sitter has to have met the pets, because most dogs won't. They don't respond well to a stranger walking up.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my questions. I can imagine an old dog, some guy just walks in, he's like, excuse me, who are you? Exactly.
Yeah, they're probably going to bark their head off, especially, some of our clients with, reactivity issues. So what we, once we get past the meet and greet and the sitter's been introduced by someone that the pet knows well, and, we've established, hey, we're a friend, then we set up we use what we call a lockbox process. So basically the client can obtain their own lockbox, keep it somewhere safe on the house. The idea is that we don't take the keys with us, because we go around town all day from house to house, and that can become a hot mess. Also, I match up my clients with a primary sitter as well as at least one backup sitter, depending on how much they use us. So, for regular dog walks in a week, it could be two sitters rotating in. So we don't want to cause delays by passing keys. So the key always stays on the property.
Okay,
they can put it in a lockbox, or a lot of people have smart locks these days, where you just punch in a code. So, they provide the code, and that's all saved securely in their MyFetch account that's accessible through the app.
Perfect.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and we'll journal for every visit, and the visits are time-stamped and GPS tracked. So our dog walk clients, they love it because they can see where their dogs walked around the path. So that journaling process, that's really important. It's our main way of communication, not just with our client, but within the care team for that client as well. Because each sitter can see the previous journal of that dog. So, we leave notes for each other sometimes, like, hey, I went down this road and there's a dog that rushed a fence and Pepper went nuts. So the next person is going to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to go down that road. Or if I need to go down that road, I'm going to cross the street before I hit that house, kind of thing.
Smart.
So we leave addresses and intersections for each other, so that, we're avoiding situations that could set up the pet for failure in the first place. Right? Yeah.
Perfect. Wonderful. So, for example, if I am going out for a long weekend and I call you and I say, okay, I have my dog I won't be able to feed or take them walk for Saturday or Sunday. Like, how would you be organized and say, okay, we got to feed the dog and walk him, 3 times? Like, how does that work? Is it the same person? Is that when you kind of like will have one person come at, like, in the morning, evening, afternoon?
That's so advance notice, advance planning. That always helps us get consistency. The more notice we have, the more consistency.
Well, what would be a good amount of time? That's like 2 weeks in advance or 3 weeks?
So for multiple visits, like what you were describing, like you only need somebody to come in 3-4 times a day. You don't need somebody to stay over, for example. 2 weeks in advance, I can usually find, here like a primary sitter where, you'll have a backup and you're going to meet both, but this one person is going to take all, or if not most, of the visits, right? So that we build that consistency for the pet, and we have that. They start building that relationship. For overnights, having a sitter stay in your home, that we are booked out 6 weeks at this point. So 6 weeks out. And specifically, I mean like long weekends, because most people want to go, leave Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's when they leave town. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday tend to be our busiest days because we still have our recurring clients mixed in there. And then the recurring clients drop off, and Saturday, Sunday, it's just vacation clients typically. So it's the, Wednesday through Sunday, they get booked out 6 weeks in advance. We might have some odd pockets in there on Monday, Tuesday, maybe sometimes even on Wednesday. But if a potential client is calling and say, hey, I need somebody to do overnights in 2 weeks, we're going to have to say, I'm sorry, we don't have any availability because we're confirmed pretty far out.
That's why it's good to plan ahead, right?
Plan ahead. That's a good tip, though. That's a good question.
Right. I mean, you plan your vacation. You book your flights, you book your hotel. You do that ahead of time. So book your pet care, right?
Makes
at
sense.
The same time. Yeah.
So here's a little more fun question.
Yeah.
What's sort of the most interesting animal or animals that you've had to actually taken care of? Because before the show, I asked you one, and you had quite an interesting pet.
Yeah, that's so. It's so hard to choose one. I mean, they're all so quirky. They're all so quirky. I mean, I had a standard poodle that was just like highly reactive on leash. But as soon as you get it off leash into a dog park or something like that, he's like the loveliest boy. He's actually boarded with me before.
Wow.
Just because he's not good in a kennel situation, and just loved my dog, loved my kids, just great. It's like with dogs, they kind of have, some of them they kind of have a switch, like if I know you're my people, then I'm here to protect you. Right. And the reactivity on leash comes from like, stand back, I got this, he was reactive to everybody. It could be a mom pushing a stroller, it could be a jogger. You could have a dog, you could not have a dog, it doesn't matter. So, when we walked him, it was a lot of aversion tactics. We never walked in a straight line. It was like duck, go this route because there's a lot of buildings to duck behind. But not on that side of the street because, it's just bushes. You can't get far enough. So that's an interesting one. We have, I'm actually doing an overnight with a lovely little girl. She is just terrified of being kidnapped, and when her parents, when her mom's not home, like she doesn't want to walk at all. She just plants. But she weighs all of like 25 pounds, so I just scoop her up. And so her walk is like I carry her to the farthest point, and then I walk her back, and then she walks back.
Like a carrier pigeon.
Right.
I used to do that when we had a little Westie and he grew really old. He did not really want to walk.
Yeah.
Right? So like I would take him out to the backyard to the porch, and he would just kind of pee, stand, and then go back in. But I said, you need to do your exercise.
Yep.
So I would do the basic same thing. I would pick him up, walk all the way to the end of the backyard, drop him, because then I knew he'd just walk right straight back to the house.
Exactly.
So he'd just be like, I drop him off, and then he'd walk all the way back to the house. So if it felt like it was a nice day, I said, you need a little more. I'd pick him up again, and drop him off, and he would just take his time. I mean, every once in a while, he'd probably stop. Every once in a while, he'll pee here, poop here, pee there.
Sure.
All that fun stuff.
Yeah.
But, all that dog stuff that
dog
they
stuff.
love to do. But that was his exercise when he got old.
They're so quirky. I mean, you know, I can probably think of a million more examples. They're each their own personalities.
Now, you did tell me that one of your clients has a pet cow.
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, I mean, they're animal lovers. They have 3 dogs, 3 cats, and they're from Wyoming, so, you know, where they had a lot of space. And the steer, she raised him since a day old because I guess it was rejected by its mom.
Wow.
So she bottle fed him and just, you know, kind of raised him as a pet. And then when they moved to Virginia, they brought all their pets along, including the steer, just, you know, trailered across country. So, you know, they live in a, you know, kind of nice suburban neighborhood, but the cow can't stay there. So the cow is boarded at a farm nearby. So when we do their care, you know, we take care of the house animals, but then we also send a sitter over to the farm.
Gotcha.
To, you know, call the cow over with his treats, you know, shake his bag, make sure he gets his treats and get fly spray. Sometimes he'll let you get brushed. Really, my sitter Max, you know, he's like the cow whisperer on that one. Yeah, you can always get him to come over.
So you have to brush the cow too?
Well, not. He doesn't have to.
Okay.
You know, because sometimes he kicks. So you want to be careful with that. But, you know, like, yeah, if we can give him his treats and, you know, really it's more of a wellness check than anything else.
Gotcha.
Like, just make sure he's okay. You know, just look him over, make sure he's not hurt or anywhere. And he's got, like, the cow's got so many girlfriends. Like, he comes out and all his other girlfriends come out too.
So he's pretty well taken care of.
Yeah.
I feel like no need to worry.
When they hear his name, they're like, "Oh, we're all getting treats," because it's like, you know, I mean, you can't just give it to the one cow. Like,
no, they get jealous.
It would be rude. Right?
I thought when Michael asked the question, I was trying to imagine a lap cow, just something that you could have in your house, and I'm like, no, there's no way, I can't see it.
No, yeah, I mean, you know, really anything that our clients consider a pet, that's what we take care of. So we've had pigs, chickens.
So yeah,
goats.
so I was going to say farms. So you do farms as well. Like if people are going away, do you do wellness check on like if people are homesteading and they have just a couple of chickens in the backyard that they need feeding and things like that?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, we're not talking like huge farms or anything like that. You know, most of the time they have staff to do that when they go away. But it's more like, you know, I have 5 pigs for, you know, because they're, you know, a specific certified breed, so you know they're thinking about breeding it, or you know, chickens for eggs, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Goats for, you know, whatever goats are for.
Cutting the grass,
eating shrubs and things like that. You know, just you know, when they go away, you know, they don't have staff or anything like that. It's just, you know, they just have their property, and it's a big property. They have pens set up, so we go over and we just make our rounds, make sure everybody's fed. And
is there a limit that for pets that you kind of like, well, it's hard for us to take care of, like maybe like a pet turtle, like a pet snake or pet spider?
No,
you take care of all of them.
All of them, yep.
Wow.
Yeah, we've had snakes, we've had bearded dragons.
Bearded.
You know, funnily enough, we have not had birds for some reason.
Really?
I don't know why. So, you know, bird people out there, we do take care of them. You're welcome to join the fetch fold. So, but yeah, anything that's considered a pet, we take care of.
For the pet snakes, it's not like sometimes like at the movies you're not feeding them like the dead rat or something that they come eat, no?
The ones that we fed is earthworm. So a live earthworm. You just, you know, drop it in, make sure the snake sees it, and it's a tiny little snake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a tiny little corn
You're not
snake.
doing pythons or anything like that?
No, we had a potential that would eat I believe a mouse is what it would eat. A lot of times those are freeze-dried and they're not live.
Okay.
You know, so you just need to drop it in.
You just bring them to all the farms, clean
It's
up the
not
farms
hard.
for them. Yeah, and then come back.
Yeah, I mean, the animals in the small enclosures, they're not, they're easy.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Wonderful. So before we let you go, where can people find you?
Everywhere in town. We are all over town. We service all of Albemarle County, Fluvanna County, and Greene County.
So best way to reach you or contact you?
FetchPetCare.com.
Okay.
Our website. Yep, that has all of our contact information, phone number, or you can, you know, fill out your request form right there online. Email us, charlottesville@fetchpetcare.com. So those are all the best ways to get a hold of us.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on, Sandra. It's been wonderful.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you.
Perfect.
That was interesting.
That was fun, yeah.
Don't say that was fun. Remember, that's what Alex always said.
Oh, Alex always says that's true. He
Yeah,
says it
remember
after every
you
single one.
criticized him one
I did
time.
criticize him
I know.
because he says it's fun.
That was
But
fun, that
it's
was
true,
fun.
it is always fun. But it's true.
It was,
I
yeah.
do criticize him for that.
No, I mean, like, we're big animal people, so it was kind of interesting to kind of hear her story and, pet care and especially, like, I can't imagine, like, dogs and cats, it's like, feels like the default, like, yeah, I could understand taking care of it, but when it gets to, like, snakes, I don't know, it's like I'd be tough time. I don't know if I could be there with the dead mouse and feeding the giant snake.
I mean, there's a certain interest to it, like, do it once. I wouldn't want to do it every time.
Yeah, I know. But, like, the small snake, okay. Like, all right, the earthworm, like, I can deal with the small snake. A big snake, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like...
Fish, yeah. You
don't want to, like, go into the house and suddenly you're going to go feed the snake and he's not
Snake's
in, like,
not
the
there,
little bowl. Yeah. Okay.
Snake's not there.
All right. But anyway, let's get on to our next guest, from one fantastic guest to another. We're very pleased to be joined by Ilya Tovbis from the Virginia Film Festival. Ilya, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
No, we're excited to have you on. So first, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got involved with the Virginia Film Festival?
Sure. I've been doing this sort of work for essentially my career, which is curating for the arts, and in particular with film. I most recently, prior to this job, which I've had for a couple of years now, was at the Jewish Film Festival in Washington, D.C., J by J, which mixed film and music from a Jewish lens, and had the great good fortune of, in some of those latter years, working as a guest programmer for the Virginia Film Festival, which is going into its 36th year and is really considered one of the premier regional international film festivals in the country. And so I jumped at the opportunity a couple of years ago when this position opened up to help curate the full lineup.
And what got you into film?
I started out in university. I went to Oberlin College, and it has a great museum and an art history program, and I took that very seriously, and I was a major in art history and history as well. Thought that I would go down the museum path, and that was my first role out of college. I worked at the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco, and honestly, I loved the museum, and I did not care for the way people interact with the art. There seemed to be a sort of unnatural distance. People would go in, and they would be appreciative, and they'd read a little note under the painting or the vase and say, that seems interesting, and then move forward. And there was a lacking of sort of deep engagement and interaction. And at the same time, this is right after college, a friend of mine was working for the San Francisco International Film Festival and offered me an internship, and so at nights after my day job I would go and I would intern with them, and it was just the polar opposite. It was a complete juxtaposition. We would watch films during the festival, and then afterwards, deep into the night, usually over a drink, we would just debate why did they do the shot this way, what was the director thinking. Sometimes the artists themselves would join us deep into the night, and then we do it again and again, and there was something just so alive about that and so animating. That's really what got me into the arts and into art history. So from there it was kind of a natural connection.
Wow,
That
that's
is a
pretty,
good story,
yeah, that's
yeah.
fascinating, because sometimes we're big movie people, and sometimes we'll have that same thing. I mean, we'll be literally talking about an hour just about like a movie that we literally just saw, and we're like, oh, why did this happen? Or why did the director put this scene in? Like, that doesn't make sense. And then someone else would be like, well, I think that was to like emphasize this theme or this perspective. So that's really fascinating. So tell us about the Virginia Film Festival. What are some of the films that we can be looking forward to seeing this year?
So it's a lot of films. It's coming up very soon at the end of the month, October 25th through 29th. It's over 100 films and programs. There's a lot to choose from. Every type of film you could imagine, from student to the most incredible auteurs, international, U.S., documentary, you name it, we have it. There are a few sort of combining themes to the festival. First off, just about everything you see in the festival are brand new films that are not yet out in theaters, haven't shown anywhere. Some of them are world premieres, U.S. premieres, and so this is really your first chance, very often with artists, to see them on the big screen, engage in exactly those kind of conversations that we were just talking about. In terms of some of the highlights, we kick off the festival with Maestro, which is the new film about Leonard Bernstein. It comes from Bradley Cooper as the director, as the actor, producer. This features both the life, legacy, and musical just incredible nature of the whole history of Leonard Bernstein, but also his personal side and his love affair with the Costa Rican Chilean actress that he ended up marrying and that had 3 of his children, played by Carey Mulligan here. It's an incredible film. It's beautiful from beginning frame to end frame. It's going to be the topic of much conversation, and this is also going to be one of our 7 awardees that's coming in. We have 7 awards to the festival, one of them specifically for craft. So a lot of times in these conversations we focus on the headline actors and the headline directors, and we have many of those in the festival, but we also want to shine a light on some of the other incredible artisans that bring these visions to the fore. And so every year we give out a craft award. This year it's to Kazuhiro, who's the makeup effects artist, and he is a 2-time Oscar Award winner. He did Bombshell and he did The Darkest Hour, and we're incredibly lucky to have him in for a conversation with the Hollywood Reporter on stage after that screening.
Oh, because he did the makeup for Bradley Cooper.
Exactly, yeah.
He looks just like Leonard Bernstein. When I've seen all the promo shots, it's like literally like you could not tell the difference in some of the.
And what's incredible is through the film, he ages quite a good deal, and all of that is done with practical and makeup effects. It's not done sort of post-production where they're putting CGI, anything like that. And it's incredible artwork. I mean, Kazuhiro in his sort of other life is a very well-known and regarded sculptor. And the amount of detail and effort towards the end of the film, as he's aging, it would take nearly 5 hours for him to just sit in the chair and get this makeup put on him.
I can't imagine sitting in the chair 5 hours getting makeup put on me. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, that is awesome.
So you mentioned a bunch of other like student films and documentaries. First of all, how do these films kind of come to your ear? Do people submit them? Are they brought to you by other people? And my second question following up to that is, how do you select them? Is there like a committee that like you vote for the films?
Sure, they're good questions. It's a bit of everything that you just mentioned.
Okay.
So we do get hundreds of films submitted, many hundreds, almost 1,000, and then we also solicit films. So altogether, for a program that is quite robust, and as I said, has over 100 entries, we considered over 1,400 films. So that comes in through all the avenues you mentioned. A lot of people have heard of and want to play at the Virginia Film Festival, and we consider all of their work. There's a formal submission process that happens for the many months leading in, and we do have a pre-screening committee of people that are dedicated to looking at that work. I look at it. Our festival director, Jody Kilbasa, who's also the UVA Vice Provost for the Arts, also takes a look at many of the selections. And then we also have guest programmers for individual sections. So in terms of how we choose the films, one of the ways is we have a series of themes that we connect to our mission that we try to ensure make it a representative program and one that's interesting and engaging for the audience at large. Some of these themes are an environmental series, a series on indigenous cinema of the Americas, a series on Korean cinema, on Black excellence. There's many more that you can find on our website. And for several of those, we have guest programmers who that's their expertise, who are curators and teachers and academics who really specialize in those areas.
Okay, so do you pick the themes before you start selecting the films, or do you already have like these certain groups that like you're going to focus on these type of films?
So it's a bit of both. So some of those categories are mentioned are evergreen. So every year we want to make sure that we have films on environmental themes, Black excellence, indigenous cinema of the Americas, and some others. And then there are other themes, like for example, I mentioned Maelstrom. Well, I'm sure we'll touch on some of the other films. This year, just organically, we found a major through line, which was music on film. So we didn't come in saying, okay, we need to find 3 selections that are music on film. Once we picked the absolute best and the films that we felt most compelled to put in, we looked at the program and said, wow, there are 7 incredible films on this topic. We want to make sure that audiences are finding them, and then we make sure that the website is filterable that way, and we sort of concretize that series for a one-off.
Interesting. Okay, so my next question afterwards would be, do you watch, you yourself, like how many movies would you say you watch and kind of like you, I know maybe a difficult question, but just curious, because you said there's like 1,400 films. How many films do you watch you yourself, like before you kind of decide, okay, yes, this film we're going to include in the Virginia Film Festival, this one unfortunately is not going to make the cut?
I'd say, just as kind of a loose guess, I probably in a given year will watch 500 some films. So many of them, as I say, there are other people. I'm not the only one. It really does take a whole community to sort of pre-filter. And some of the pre-screening committee, they'll pass on ones they feel really strongly about. Some of those do get in, some of those don't. One of the incredible benefits of my job is I get to go to some of the major international film festivals. So I went to Cannes, I went to Toronto this year with the goal, and luckily successfully this year, of bringing back some of the highlights from those festivals, oftentimes with filmmakers attending in tow.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow, so you've been in a lot of places this year.
I have, yeah. It's a real benefit of the job, and it's not exactly a vacation. You're working morning to night, but it's the best sort of form of work. It's social. You're seeing lots of films. You're meeting lots of artists, and having conversations about bringing them back to Charlottesville.
So what are some hidden gem films or documentaries that are premiering in the Virginia Film Festival that people might not know that you might want to like spotlight here on the show?
Sure, and one of the ones that maybe is a hidden gem, maybe is not, is we have Nikki Giovanni is coming in, who is one of the most highly regarded poets in American history. She is, along with James Baldwin and Langston Hughes, sort of the most associated poet with the civil rights movement through to the Black Power movement, is still working today, was until recently teaching at Virginia Tech. She's coming in with a brand new documentary that I think is just beautiful about her life. It kicked off at Sundance, and I think in just a couple of days is going to be a centerpiece screening at the London Film Festival. But this is a film that I think rises to her level, which is incredibly challenging when you're telling a story about someone that is deeply creative and has quite literally sort of changed the curve of our culture as she has. It is, I think, imperative as a filmmaker not to tell that story in a traditional, purely talking head manner. And what the two filmmakers here do is just incredible. It's a visual story, and it is almost as poetic as her work itself. She will be there to comment on it afterwards, but I highly encourage people to seek out Going to Mars, the Nikki Giovanni Project, which is the name of the documentary.
Interesting. So is it a documentary that's featuring like actors, or is it sort of like following her life story with her in it?
So it's following her life story with her in it.
Okay.
It follows her from her personal life story with her and her partner, speaking engagements, archival footage, but it's also melded together with this really sort of dazzling array of visuals that in a way are actually interpreting her words and her poetry. So it goes far beyond what you might expect in terms of just a series of credible talking heads talking about the history of someone's life.
Interesting.
So I have a question. So for a lot of your audience who probably hasn't been to the Virginia Film Festival, what is that experience like? Because I know like the idea of a festival, all these booths and things like that. So just get into the head of somebody who hasn't been before. What is that going to look like?
I highly encourage anyone that hasn't gone to the Virginia Film Festival, of course, to come to ours, or if you're not right by us or not available, go to your local film festival. I think it's critical both to keep the art alive, but it's one of the most just fun times. It's so deeply engaging, because what happens is, sure, you see movies, again, you're some of the first people in the world to see these movies on the big screen. You're getting to see them in your community, and you're getting to talk about those films with the people behind the scenes, the directors, the actors, the screenwriters. Others of those are in the audience, and again, you get to really engage with them. You're not just sitting there as a passive audience. You're not just sitting on your couch. You're really getting out and watching these films, and I'd encourage you, if you can, take a chance on a couple of films, maybe one or two that do have those sizzling top-line actors, and we have plenty of those that are going to be in the Oscar conversation, the Academy Award conversation. But take a chance, if you could, on just one film that's a little bit further down the list that you might not recognize some of the names. We have about half of our program is international. We have 9 of the films that are competing for their country for the Oscar Award for Best International Feature. And, take a chance on one of those. See a vision and a perspective of someone that's halfway around the world that you might not otherwise see, that might not even ever make it to your theater or even to your TV on a streaming platform.
Wow.
And so when can we expect tickets to go on sale?
Great question. Tickets go on sale tomorrow. That's October the 6th at noon. And I will say not everything sells out right away, but we do have a lot of people that kind of are hidden refresh and are looking to get those tickets. So if you're really keen on a particular screening, I would advise you to go on soon. We have halls at the Paramount that are over 1,100 seats, and we have some halls that are much smaller at the Violet Crown that go as low as 70 seats. And so if there's something you're really interested in, it's quite possible if you don't get there tomorrow, shortly after it opens, might not be available. So, I would encourage everyone to take a little time to check out the schedule and get on there as soon as you can.
Exciting.
You definitely get your tickets. Then, everyone listening, get your tickets. If you go check it out and see what you're interested in.
So before we let you go, just give us a quick refresh. Where can you buy tickets? When's the festival? I think you said October 25th to 29th?
That's correct. Yeah, the festival
Okay.
October 25th to 29th, all in Charlottesville, primarily on the downtown mall as well as on the grounds of the university at the Culbreth Theater. Tickets go on sale tomorrow, October 6th. The website is virginiafilmfestival.org. You can also find all of our social platforms, lots of information, and yeah, hope to see everyone there, including the two of you.
Thank you so much
Ilya,
for coming on the
joining
show
us.
and sharing all the films coming.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Especially as film people. We're,
Yeah, well, I was excited to hear that Maestro was going to be there because, as you know, I love Leonard Bernstein. I actually like Bradley Cooper. I think he's a good actor.
Yeah.
And I've seen the shots
well, yeah,
already.
I know. When the minute I saw it, like they were featuring Maestro, I was like, oh, Nick's going to be happy about that,
Yeah,
considering he's got all his Leonard Bernstein's conducting
recordings, everything.
and all
Like
that.
and I have his books. I have a bunch of stuff by Leonard. He was he was a pivotal.
Yeah.
For those of who don't know, he was a pivotal figure in bringing classical music to American audiences. He'd go on TV. He'd explain. He was considered the great teacher. He was a composer. Like
I know he was a great composer. I mean,
he
he
was
did On the
wonderful.
Waterfront, West Side Story. He did even other stuff
he
beyond
did
that.
Candide. He was famous. His Mass is very famous. They tried to include rock and roll into classical music. You know, so and a lot of his stuff is really just beautiful music, and it's interesting because there's a lot of comparisons, of course, for him to Gustav Mahler. But one of the things they always say is that had he not been so famous for being a TV personality or had recordings, it's possible we know him today as a composer. Mm-hmm. Because Gustav Mahler was the same thing, famous as a conductor, famous as a teacher, and then all of this.
Well,
but we don't
luckily,
have his
I
recording.
think because of the success of West Side Story, I think a lot of people know him as a composer just because of that.
Yeah, it'll plug him into
you
the
can
world,
easily
yeah.
know 2-3 songs from West Side Story, and hence you kind of know.
Everyone knows at least one.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So, but that's interesting. And plus, I hope that people, especially if you go to Virginia Film Festival, like Ilya said, you also take a chance at some of these other films because, I mean, he just said there's like hundreds of films that they're premiering.
There's student films, and remember,
Exactly.
like Christopher
Foreign
Nolan
films.
got his start doing these kind of films, right? Want to do a quick shout out. Thank you, Johnny Ornelas, for liking and sharing. Amigo del Programa. We missed you too. We're glad you're tuning back in and watching, and thank you, John Blair, for watching.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. And so finally, we get our last guest, last but not least, our good friend Matthias Yohn joining us. How you doing, Matthias?
Doing fantastic.
Doing
Thank
fantastic.
You. I'm glad to be back, and I was just wondering, how do we now manage the transition from film festival to me? You know, how can I make the transition very interesting?
You're like a movie star.
There we go. That's it.
Yeah, I'm here today to introduce my newest film.
Matthias and you. But it was interesting. I was going to say, you actually tie in better to our first guest because we were going to talk about homesteading and farms and things like that. And she watches chickens and et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things I wanted to throw at Matthias is because for Emergent's quarterly report, I was doing some research, thank you, into homesteading. And one of the things I found out is that 11% of people who have been homesteading, or 15.4% of people who have been homesteaded just started, as in they just did it within less than a year. And among the people who are homesteading, 25% was in the 1 to 3 years range. So this is obviously a big movement. It's majority affecting people in our age range, 30 to 39, 36%.
That's not my range. I'm below that.
Yeah, well, not you. Matthias and I, we're in that range. So
barely.
But we're still in the range. Though we're still in the bracket, right? So tell us, are you seeing that on the realtor side?
We actually do. So as a brokerage, we deal with a lot of land and farm transactions, which also means that I, as a realtor, I'm not only doing business here in Charlottesville, but also in surrounding counties. And I have a passion for the counties and the Blue Ridge, whether it's Nelson County or Augusta or Rockbridge or Greene, for that matter. And we do see a trend of families, actually people our age, interestingly, and your statistics just confirm that are seeking to move from metropolitan areas into more rural areas, right? So we have families from Northern Virginia that are tired of the hustle and bustle of modern life there, of their busy lives there, that are interested in moving into the mountains here, just to have more space for the family. Now, homesteading, it's a little bit of a romanticized perception, right? Mm-hmm. Homesteading typically means that you are self-sufficient. Right. You live on land, usually anything over 5 acres. And back in the day, the state or the government actually granted land to you. I think it started in the 1860s with that Homestead Act. That's where the name or the classification really comes from. And while we do no longer have that program, it stopped in the 1960s, we still see, or more again than in previous years, that trend of surprisingly young people, families, moving to rural areas because they are seeking for, different values. They want to live, and that sounds cheesy, but more in harmony with nature, and they're interested in more traditional skills. I'm not implying that a family from Northern Virginia moving to Nelson County necessarily has skills in leather production, right? Yeah. But it's the modern day homesteading really means that you're interested in self-sufficiency to a certain level. You still rely on production of a local community, right? But it shows that there's a little bit of a cultural movement. People moving from very busy areas into rural areas with their families, kind of interested in exploring, a chicken coop and harvesting crops, maybe have some animals. There are also tax incentives, a variety of reasons, but I see that a lot. And as a brokerage, we observe that trend. Just that when you were looking at the statistics, did it compare to pre-COVID, or was it just a general trend that you saw?
Well, so for everyone who's interested, Homesteaders of America is where I got these statistics. They were taken at the end of 2022, and they're given in pie charts. So everyone they've polled. So they've had for the statistics on how many years have you been homesteading, there were 3,780 responses, and so it's not giving me necessarily since COVID, but 1 to 3 years is kind of that range that they're giving. They didn't give it per year. But it's still interesting because the majority, if you're looking at the pie, if you add the 25% plus the 15%, the majority of people who are doing this have started in less than 2-3 years. So it's mostly extremely new people. It's mostly so scrolling down to get these.
So it seems to be coinciding with the beginning of the pandemic, that it's kind of pushed people.
And this is why Emergent was covering this, because of one of the things we were considering is the fact that with inflation driving up the price of essential goods more than other goods, our thought was the response is then to search out, if you're going to get a home, a place where you can homestead and therefore supplicate your expenses by growing stuff yourself, having your own herbs. And we talked about this before, having just an herb outside your house technically counts as homesteading, which sounds a little bizarre, but you are growing your own food to supplicate your income. So technically speaking, you can be like an urban homesteader or a homesteader. So that's kind of where we were coming from, but we wanted to see how it related on the real estate side.
So I have a quick question, Matthias. Before, when you talked about homestead, you said there was a tax benefit. What's the tax benefit that you can get from having a homestead? Does it come out you can get a better loan, or?
Well, again, disclaimer: I am not a financial advisor or a tax professional, so I'm just giving, an observation or. The experience really is, and that depends where you are, that there are write-offs or incentives for living on land of more than 5 acres, more than 10 acres. Some people have experienced, the benefits of having animals, because that classifies a farm, and with that you have other benefits. So there are reasons for people to consider having animals or having a specific size of land that they purchase, right? But you need to really consult your financial advisor if you want to get into the details of your tax benefits for that. But a lot of people report the benefits. Yeah.
Interesting. So as you see increase in homesteaders, where are areas, obviously not in Charlottesville, but around Charlottesville, that you see that might become extremely popular for people who want to potentially start their own homestead?
It's interesting, and we talk about this a lot, how we observed this trend starting during 2020 when the pandemic started, of people wanting more space. We heard in the media about people leaving New York City, and those that could afford buying farmland or just into less developed areas for the reason of, being away from the restrictions, from lockdowns, having more space, more air for the family. It went hand in hand with more and more fiber being available in rural areas. Okay. And so what that means for us here in Virginia is we see that in Nelson County, in Augusta County, Rockbridge County, Greene County, all of a sudden you can live in the woods or on the mountain and you have access to high-speed internet. And that's a game changer.
Yeah,
that's true.
Right? And so you can work from home, and at the same time, you don't need to commute to Charlottesville or to Richmond anymore. You can work from home, and all of a sudden, you have the option of living in rural areas. So that changes the way people live, the way people work, and how they combine those two things. Right. And what I find so interesting is that the most recent data shows that trend is ongoing. We no longer have the lockdowns and the restrictions. Time will tell how the hybrid model of working from home and in the office at your employer, how that will work out. But chances are that your employer will now allow you to work at least partially from home. And with high-speed internet being available, even in more rural areas, that is more of an option now. And so I personally, as a realtor, I see that trend going on. I'm working with people that are fleeing Northern Virginia into DC, for example, looking to live in the Crozet area and in Greene County and in Nelson County. And I might become one of them one day.
What animals would you have if you started a homestead?
Well, I think I want to start with chicken.
Chickens?
Yeah, everyone wants to start with chickens, yeah.
The eggs.
That's the cliche, but why not?
The goats cut your grass.
That's what my dad wants, a goat.
Yeah, I was like, that's what I want.
Because he's tired of cutting grass.
Fertilizes the soil again.
My thing is anything that reduces my workload first, and then I move up to something that will give me things. But
those buzzwords, homesteading or micro farming, are not necessarily limited to rural areas. We see this in Richmond and in Charlottesville too. You can consider yourself a urban farmer or a micro farmer if you have some herbs in your kitchen or on the balcony. And while that is not necessarily what we mean with homesteading, it shows that people are interested in, a back to the roots approach, or combining nature and outdoors and some skills, some basic skills back into the life.
Yeah, productive hobbies that keep their families safe. Now, following that up, are there people looking in more urban areas that have shown interest in even if it's just having a gated fence backyard with a plot of dirt, just something for them to pursue this, or is that just a lot less of a concern for people looking more in Charlottesville?
You mean, are people looking in general for properties with more land?
Even like, I guess, in the urban setting, because we were talking about urban microfarming and urban homesteading, is that still something they're considering when purchasing a spot, or is it just something that they'll attach afterwards if they get lucky enough to have, like, you know, an apartment with a little outdoor area or something like that?
Well, if you compare what amenities or features home buyers are looking for when they move to Charlottesville, it might be similar to how it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. A property in Belmont that comes with a fenced-in yard is more attractive for a variety of reasons, but also because it has some green space. So in an urban area and with very low inventory, especially in a market like Charlottesville, those become more desirable. And as a result, people are comparing the property in Belmont or in Fry Springs with something in Greene County or Nelson County, which becomes more affordable, and again, with high-speed internet, with infrastructure being available, with more developments in those rural areas as well, that is an option, and no longer necessarily a step down, but just more in line with what the options are.
All right, that answered my question very perfectly. Yeah.
So when people are coming to you, do you see that there is a push for people? Like, does it matter how close they are to Charlottesville? If someone says, Matthias, I'm looking for a house with land, you know, like 5 acres, and you begin to search for properties, do you see a lot of people saying, well, I want to be within 30 minutes of Charlottesville, or does that not seem like people being okay with, because of the building up in Crozet and like Ruckersville,
Right.
people are like, no, it's okay if I'm 45, 50 minutes away from Charlottesville. I'm fine with that.
I want to say it depends on on socioeconomics, but also what are the preferences, where are they in their life? Is it a family we are talking about that needs to commute to Richmond or to Charlottesville because they need to be physically present in town at their workplace? Or are we talking about a couple from in New York State that wants to retire in Charlottesville? They are more interested in having medical facilities close by. So they do pay attention on proximity to UVA or Augusta Health in the mountains, and they want to make sure they're close to a highway and have access to those amenities they're looking for. But again, it really depends where people are in their life and what they value right
Interesting.
now. But again, that's an ongoing process, and I'm very curious how this plays out. But we do observe that people value different things now. We also know homeschooling is quite popular in the U.S., so young families might not necessarily look at school districts as much anymore. If they move to Nelson County and they're already planning on homeschooling and maybe even homesteading, then being close to a fantastic school system like Western Albemarle, for example, or proximity to high-end grocery stores might be less important for this type of client. It really depends where you are. You are asking, you sound like you are interested in.
Yeah, I have
in
one more question that keeps popping in my head. So
Yeah.
if homesteading continues to rise, and it's interesting because, you know, talking about this, I know some people who, on the younger side, who keep thinking about it. Like, they're not really, like, financially there yet, but it's still in their mind, like, in 5 years, I want to be homesteading. Given that, where are areas that you see that could become good investments if you're saying, like, I might want to actually start thinking about buying the land now, what are some areas where you think you could see a big jump in people homesteading?
Well, I recently read an article where they compared farmland and the quality thereof in different areas in Virginia. And I think number 2 on the list was Augusta County. And Augusta County, if you live in Charlottesville, it's a 25-minute drive, and you're already in Augusta County. And so we see a lot of growth up there, especially the areas around Waynesboro, Stanton, because they're attractive cities that experience growth, and with growth come, other benefits. You have more small businesses moving there. The quality of healthcare is improving. The school system as a result as well. So we see that area growing, and I always look at Nelson County, Greene, Augusta, Rockbridge, because I have this passion for the more mountainous area. But if you're looking at counties and how they grow compared to others, look at Louisa, Fluvanna, so the area located between Charlottesville and Richmond. If you are able to purchase land there right now, you will definitely benefit from that purchase just in a relatively short span of time.
Wow. That's great investment advice right there.
Yeah.
And again, careful, I'm a realtor.
No,
Please
I
talk to your
understand, but
financial advisor.
It's good to get a different perspective, because one of the things we talk about, like, no matter what we say about homesteading, and like everyone wants to find a house that's good for them, let's not forget, this is generally speaking, for most Americans, the home is going to be the largest investment they make, and so that's why talk to your financial advisor, talk to your realtor, talk to the people that are able to give you solid advice, because it's not just one thing, right? Your home wears a lot of hats. Let's put it that way.
I can give you an example. I met an appraiser yesterday for a house that I'm selling on behalf of the owners, and so we spoke a little bit about current trends and how that impacts her job right now as an appraiser. And she told me that the calculations that she has to deliver to the bank in order to justify a certain sales price, that has changed drastically in just the last few months and years, for reasons that we already spoke about. For example, internet being available in rural areas. So a property that would have appraised for less just 4 years ago, very different now. And so back to your question about what would be a good investment, let's sit down and talk about what you're looking for, first of all, but also what are the amenities, the features you're looking for. You asked me about, do people still care to be within 30 minutes of driving distance to Charlottesville? Mm-hmm. Sure, it's still important, but not for everyone.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah. There's so many different factors to. I don't have my mind around this sometimes, but thank God Matthias says, like, there's so many different factors that go into, like, where buying land, like the age. I never even thought about that. Like, retirees want to be closer to hospitals naturally, because you're older. Like, in my mind, I would never be thinking, I gotta be close to a hospital. I'd be like, whatever. 20 minutes, I want 50 minutes.
It's different for us.
Exactly.
Right? Well, I'm married to a nurse too. I'm like, if something happens,
if something happens, I go to his house.
Yeah. She was practicing her health assessment the other day, and Michael and Xavier's first response is, I guess I don't have to go to the doctor, she'll do it. I'm like, it's not the same, but sure. And Matthias, thank you so much for
yes, and I know last time you were on with Alex and I, we talked about doing like an Oktoberfest show. I have to apologize. It didn't even occur to me that this show is actually in October, but hopefully we'll have you on again before October ends, and we'll get some beers. You could come in your special suit. Your superhero suit.
I'm happy to do it. Last weekend I had to dust off my lederhosen because we went to an Oktoberfest event in Nelson County at a brewery. But they also have great food, and they had music there.
Oh, wonderful.
And so my wife looked at me as I was putting on my lederhosen and the traditional shoes and all that, thinking that I would probably be the only one there. But as we arrived, there were a bunch of people in lederhosen, and wonderful. Not all of them were Germans. So it's this time of the year where Americans.
That's great. I wish I had gone.
I didn't even know. I didn't know that other Americans just like. It's like when Americans pretend to be Irish on St. Patrick's Day. We'll just be anything as long as we can party.
Exactly.
we all look forward to events that,
Right.
that come with the seasons. And right now, Oktoberfest, for other people, they're celebrating the harvest or Thanksgiving. And in Germany, we do it in a different way.
Are you
But
thumbs up or thumbs down on pumpkin ale?
a thumbs down person?
Just I had to ask.
As a German, I'm more of a purist in that regard, right? But I also don't drink pumpkin spice cappuccinos.
Oh, okay.
Or whatever you can get at Starbucks these
Yeah,
days.
the pumpkin spice lattes. It becomes a fad now. It's almost like a cult. I don't know. I get a little creeped out with those people. They only live for 1 month of the year when the pumpkin spice
I know.
latte shows up. I'm like, get a life.
I like the simple things. Coffee con leche.
There we
There
go.
There we go.
That's why
I don't
he's
need no pumpkin spice.
You don't
There you
need
go.
no pumpkin spice.
This
Get
is why we
out
love
of
having
here.
Matthias on, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with the beer. Don't mess with the very simple
It's
recipe.
the formula, yeah. It's been the same for 7,000 years. We don't need to add pumpkin now.
But
yeah.
I have to say it as a German.
Yeah. It's a matter of pride, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Matthias, thank you so much for coming on. It's
Always
always a
great being
joy.
here.
Always a joy having you on.
Thanks for having me. See you very soon.
See you soon.
In Lederhosen.
In
And
Lederhosen,
Lederhosen,
yeah.
yes. Oh yeah, I can't wait for that. I know, like I said, like it jumped on me. I was like, I think it was yesterday. I was
September
like,
flew by.
yeah, I know, right? It feels like it just started yesterday, and now it's like fall's on its way. I feel like in like 2 weeks
that's
we're
why I
gonna
wore my
come
fall
here
shirt.
and it's
Yeah.
gonna be cold and
No,
well, you
don't say that, yeah.
It feels like it. It's like it's almost approaching, and like it's gonna change on a dime.
It's sad, but...
Well, we had a great show today. I'm happy you were here. With
it
me.
was fun.
It was better than fun. It was fantastic.
There you go. It's fantastic.
Fantastic.
It was fantastic.
There we go.
That's the new Michael
The
Urpí
new thing.
experience.
It's fantastic. You know, like chillaxing. He used that for our dog
Yeah,
because
it's-
as he got older, he would just be like lying down in a way where he looked like he was relaxing, but then he would have his little paw up on the chair,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, look at him. He's chillaxing.
Yeah.
He was chilling and relaxing at the same time. But yeah, we had a great show today. And as always, we're proud to be sponsored by Castle Hill Cider, Matthias Young Realty, Craddock Serious Insurance, and did I say presented by Emergent Financial
No, you
Services?
didn't, but...
FABA, and then presented by Emergent Financial Services. This way I kept it like last and had
Yeah,
something.
I was like, that's us. We got him thrown in
But
there.
yeah, so I was Michael. I'm Michael. I was so happy to be hosting the show today. Happy to be joined by Nickolas, and
for having me.
I'm guessing Xavier and Alex will be on next week.
I believe so. They
Yes.
are... Well, they're scheduled for next week, so they,
They are,
better
yes,
show up. but
and they will be
have no
joined
fear.
by Cass Cannon, who's the owner of Peg Salt. So that should be a good show. You know, Alex and Xavier will be back. Nickolas and I will be gone. You don't have to deal with us for an hour like you did today.
And you'll hear Alex say "Cafe con leche" in his
Exactly.
own words.
You know, but as Alex would like to finish off the show, hasta mañana.